Let's see, there we go. Okay, so again, this is Ray Lutz with Citizens Oversight, and I've got here also I'll bring up in the field of view the agenda that we're going to be working with. There it is. Got a different version of it. Just a second here. I know. I want to put it in print version so we get rid of all the other tabs and stuff. There we go. All right, now this is August 25th, not 2016, and this is the third conference call that we've had. Based on the feedback I did get from people who listened in, I'm going to start with a little bit of a soapbox presentation here regarding why election integrity is the most important single issue today. And basically, if you are working on something else, it may make no difference at all if our votes are not, if the elections are completely rigged and the votes really don't count the way you think they do, then you may be trying to get people elected and happy-go-lucky, feeling good about it, but in essence, it's already set up so that you'll just be wasting your time. This issue is nonpartisan. We're not really sponsoring any candidates or anything like that. However, it's good to know that this is inherently progressive because it does, by making sure our elections are correct and making sure that everybody has the right to vote no matter who you are, making sure that registration is easy, etc. This will actually is a very progressive thing to do because it provides control from those that are currently in charge and gives it to the masses, the public. So even though we're not sponsoring specific candidates, we're not trying to get people specifically elected, even though we may be working on some issues with regard to elections or perhaps some bills that are being processed. We're not going to be working at all, and you don't have to feel like you're partisan when you do this. Therefore, we get a kind of a larger tent. Basically, everybody should be able to agree that if the elections are not working right, then we got a big problem. I just watched Our Revolution last night, and they want to get people to run for a school board. They listed all these things. Run for office. Again, if your elections are all rigged, you're just going to be wasting your time. This is a little bit tricky to do election integrity because you have to be there at exactly the right time, and you have to kind of know what you're doing. You have to not be wasting your time. A lot of things that I encountered when I first started were effectively a big waste of time, and I didn't realize that. Let me make sure I got this so you can see my little face here. I didn't realize that we were the stuff we were being asked to do, whether it was going to be useful or not. And in essence, we discovered that it really wasn't that useful until we actually got into figuring out exactly how to go after this. And so that's why I think we're well positioned now to get acting at exactly the right moment and being the most efficient with your time. Because if you run for office, you get on the school board, that's going to be very effective perhaps locally for your influence. But it's a lot of work too. It's a big commitment to be on the school board. You have to go to all the meetings and do all the work. You get a little bit of pay for it. But what we're talking about is actually also encouraging people to provide oversight to those groups, and you don't have to do it every single time. You don't have to. You're not on the line as you are when you're the elected official, but you can go in there and provide that essential oversight as well. So that's really the place to start. And this was missing from Our Revolution. They didn't talk about how do you get people ready to be on the school board. Well, the way you get them ready is to start going to school board meetings, start to know what they're talking about. Go to the fire board, water board, all these city council, the one that you like, hospital board. There's all kinds that are meeting with no one there, deciding on perhaps raising taxes, raising their salaries and benefits, and reducing services. And the public normally isn't there. That's really the place to start. And this is why our revolution is off track. They say, well, let's get people just to run for office. First, you got to have people that are ready to run for office. Here, we're not trying to get people to take over the elections processing. We just want people to be able to watch it really, really carefully and clean it up, because right now it's a mess. It's going to take a lot of work, and I don't think the work will ever be done. Watching the elections go on is an essential part of being a citizen in the democracy that we claim to have. If we don't watch our elections, if we don't guarantee that they're right and working correctly, it's only our own fault. The elected officials, by definition, don't want to correct what they just were elected through. They like it that way. So it inherently gets, it's sort of more than rigged, it tends to be atrophied into a mode where it can be hacked by outsiders or even insiders. So that's the statement of intent here. I can't think of any other issue in the political spectrum that's more important to work on than to make sure our elections are working correctly. There isn't anything else. If you say, well, I'm going to work on Citizens United and get rid of that, it doesn't make any difference if the elections are still rigged. You can get rid of all the money, you can have public financing and so forth, and still have rigged elections, but good luck getting that through. With rigged elections, you'll never get those things through. And that's what we've seen here. Even though we may have really good candidates that should get more elected, like in the Bernie Sanders case, should have gotten perhaps the nomination. But because the system is rigged, because the media is also rigged to the extent that, let's face it, who makes all the money on these campaigns? Who likes those big donor dollars? Who likes Citizens United? The media. They collect all those billions of dollars. So you're not going to see a lot in the media against that stuff. And unfortunately, my view of the Our Revolution is it's a nice thing, but again, it's mistargeted. It had no mention of election integrity at all. It had no mention of getting people prepared to run for office. Just jump in there and do it. A lot of people aren't even ready for that. They need to go to some of these meetings, start to learn what they're talking about before they're ever ready to run. Well, I hope they do well, but it's nice to have a new entity on the field here. So now let me move on. I think that'll help. So I had some questions after the last few conference calls about that question. I wanted to make sure that we had that. Now, Citizens Oversight is a 501c3 charity, so tax-deductible donations are accepted. And we're based in Delaware mostly because that gave us the ability to maintain really tight control of the organization, especially when it was young, and during the Occupy interval where we had trouble with infiltrators. And we're funded by small contributors, and we have a very low budget. It's not, right now we're starting to expand because of our success in this lawsuit, and hopefully this lawsuit will be our key to expanding us, slowly. I don't want to do it on all one chunk, but the idea is that we've got something going here in San Diego, and we want to try to replicate that in as many places as possible. We're not thinking that it's going to snap into fruition like they're doing with Our Revolution, where they had 2,600 house parties. We're not going to be able to do that, nor I don't think it's really even practical in this case, because this is a different type of activity. It isn't just going out campaigning or protesting. It has to do with watching very, very carefully what's going on, and with a very critical eye. Okay, now let me move on. I'm going to be covering now the status report on our lawsuit and its implications. This is another thing that people had asked me to do after the fact that they were very interested in making sure I covered this. I did send out an overview video of the lawsuit. Actually, it was a press release that went out recently, and I think it is pretty good to cover that press release. Maybe I can bring it up here. But the trial, the main thing is the trial has been scheduled, and the date is October 3rd. It's scheduled for 3 days, and so that is going to be a pretty big deal that we have this election integrity trial going on. I mean, when have you've heard about a lot of lawsuits happening? Usually you're not hearing about them actually making it to the trial. We have experts that agree with us. All ballots must be included in the random selection set of the audit. You don't have to review all the ballots, but you need to include all the ballots in the set that you're randomly choosing from, and that's what they're not doing. And we noticed in these recent reports that have come out, we got some from San Mateo and other counties. The reports look really good. Oh, they got pictures and stuff, but never do they mention that they're not actually including all the ballots in the audit. They say that they've got the polls ballots and the vote by mail ballots and so forth, but they don't include all of them. And it took some work to figure out that this was the case, because at first glance you wouldn't know that. So anyway, in this lawsuit, we're now going to be doing discovery. That means we're going to be deposing Michael Vu, who is a registrar of voters in San Diego. That's going to be interesting. We asked to get it video recorded, but they said they would only allow it if we didn't get to show it to anyone. And so what's good is the extra cost to do that if we can't show it to anyone. I think that's a bit ridiculous. These are public officials, and I think that their word should be a public matter. It should not be handled in a private situation. We will get the transcript, so you can read the transcript. It's just that the transcript doesn't always expose those body language nuances and so forth that you would see in a video, of course. Now, what are the implications of this? Now, basically, again, this lawsuit is about the audit. This is about the fact that they're excluding in San Diego's case, about 40% of the ballots from the set. So if you take all the ballots, they're including only 60%, and they're leaving out this 40 because they were coming in later, and it was just not very handy for them to put those in. And we're saying, no, you got to include all of them, because if you take out 40% of the ballots, you're opening it up to a lot of manipulation. Easily, 285,000 ballots, and Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton difference was only 15. So out of 285,000, you can find that 15 in there. You could go 30 easily. You could go 60 easily and completely flip the election the other way. So we've got to have those in the audit. What will happen if we win our case? I think we will, first of all, because the law is pretty clear that you have to include these ballots in the audit. It says all ballots cast. And the argument they have, they say, first of all, the vote by mail ballots, we're not including those because it's not convenient. Hey, the law says all ballots cast, including all vote by mail ballots. There's no way that they can get away with not including all those vote by mail ballots. So there's really no argument for that. They do have an argument, a weak one, I think, that they don't have to do the provisionals. Now we're changing our language on this term provisional somewhat, and I've coached my attorney to say validated provisionals, because of course we don't want them to include all of the provisionals, because some of them will be thrown out because they weren't valid. But there's a big set of those provisionals that are validated, and they're valid ballots that should be included in the audit. So we're going to be saying, and I encourage you to also change your language to say validated provisionals all the time when you're talking about provisionals that should be included in the audit. So if we win this, First of all, we want them to go back and redo the 1% manual tally in San Diego, because for some few reasons it's a little bit cockamamie how they did it. They started with choosing the precincts, 1,522 precincts, and they would choose 16 precincts out of the 1,522. But then they said, well, we don't do that the same way for vote by mail ballots. We're going to choose batch by batch. And they said in the selection, oh, there's 730 batches, 1% of that is 8 batches. There's about 400 ballots in a batch. Mixed precincts. And I understand, I'm still trying to clarify this, there's up to 40 precincts in a batch. It isn't absolutely all precincts. Just a second. So the mixed precinct batches, and I think they're calling them decks as well. This is all going to be coming out in our discovery process. We're going to be asking them loads of questions, trying to clarify all this, trying to get their procedures, which they apparently have very few. It's really quite amazing that this is one of the key areas of our democracy, and they run it in such a sloppy fashion. They don't even have written procedures. What business runs their business this way? I don't know of any, because the thing is, if you want to have a high quality business, say a production company or something, the first step is you got to document all your procedures. That's the first step of a high level of quality. So if we win this, we want to ask them to redo this entire ballot. Let me get to the point on the batches. They first started with selecting precincts and batches, and then later, as soon as we sued them, they said, oh, we don't use batches at all. We only use precincts. And we're going, well, wait a minute, you changed. They now admit that they changed. And so since they changed halfway through of doing it the other way, we want them to start over and choose completely different precincts and put the magnifying glass on this election. Unfortunately, this issue does not cover a lot of the rigging that went on this election, such as the provisionals, validated provisionals, that were people who came in as nonpartisan voters, asked for a crossover ballot, and those were put in a provisional envelope. How were those handled? Were they given extra scrutiny? This type of thing. So there's a lot of other rigging up front, dropping people from the rolls, putting them on vote by mail, and then never sending them the ballot. There was so many reports that we got of different things on the front end before you ever got to the audit. Well, guess what? If we do our job right, make sure that these audits are really well done, then it's like squeezing a balloon. You get this part, and then it's going to pop out in another area. So you got to keep trying to, cover as much as possible. So if we win this is going to be able to be extrapolated to other counties in the state very easily. They're covered by exactly the same law. So there's no difficulty in saying to all those other counties, you have to follow the law the same way. And we've already sent email letters to these other counties saying, you need to let us know, please let us know, are you planning to include all the ballots cast in your 1% manual tally audit? Very few have responded. Moran is one who said, no, we're not going to. We're not going to include the validated provisionals in the tally. So we're going to have to take them to court. And anyone else that either doesn't reply or says, no, I'm not going to do it, then we're going to file a lawsuit in that county. That's our intention. So we're going to go after those counties in California to make sure we clean this up. The implications in other states. I've got two things here. There's those that have crappy audit laws. Now, here's the thing about this. Concentrating on the audit itself also implies that we're going to be using a durable paper ballot, because if you don't have a durable paper ballot or what they call an audit trail, voter verified paper audit trail, that the voter gets to verify as they're voting or right after they've voted to verify it's what they said. And then that piece of paper is what's used to check what's in the computer. Many states don't have that. So if you concentrate on audit, you can't even do an audit unless you have that. So by concentrating on the audit, we also, just by force of the fact that it's required, we're also requiring these voter verified paper audit trails, paper ballots. This type of audit can be applied to any type of voting system. It can be open source, closed source. It doesn't really matter. You know, even if you have an open source system, and some people say, open source, we want that so we can verify that there's no hacking inside. Oh, that's all fine and dandy. You can look at this thing and make sure it's open source. They can still, by hand, go in there and screw with it. You still have to have the audit. If you say, well, I want to hand count ballots. I want in every precinct to hand count them. And that's a glorious thing. In some people's minds, they want to have everybody count these. Guess what? Doesn't work at all for vote by mail ballots. They come in and you're still back in the facility. You still have to audit those. And I think you still have to audit the ones that are done in the precincts. The audit always has to occur, even if you get hand counted ballots in the precincts, which, by the way, I don't really think is that great of a, and really the idea that you're going to get that through these counties that have machines doing counting, I don't really think it's going to happen, nor do I think that it is a silver bullet. Now we have another case, those with good laws but poor implementation, just like California. California has pretty good audit laws, but they're poorly implemented and we're not providing oversight. So these are the two categories. Those with crappy audit laws, we're going to have to try to improve them, and those with good audit laws, and that means we're going to have to provide the same sort of oversight so they're following the laws. In California, they weren't even following the law. It's there. It's a pretty good law, but they don't follow it. They just say, we don't want to follow it. So it takes citizens to come in like we did and hold their feet to the fire and say, you got to do it. So that's the repercussions. Now, I just want to make sure it's understood that if we, no matter what happens in this lawsuit, it's not going to put Bernie Sanders back on the ticket against Donald Trump. That would be fantastic if I could say that we had something that would actually do that. But people that are asking me, will this happen? Not through this avenue, I don't think. I don't think we can get the DNC to, even if we did a great job, let's say everything went our way and we were able to show that California was won by Bernie Sanders. Do you think the DNC would do anything? No. They've already crowned Hillary as their candidate, and it's over. The only way that Hillary would be taken down would be perhaps through the WikiLeaks emails or something. And so if you want to go after her that way, then go for it. And then maybe Bernie, because he didn't really say he wasn't, he just suspended his race, so maybe he would step back in. I don't know. I think that it's all but over in this round, and so we just need to be working on the future versus trying to correct stuff that happened in the past. But we need to learn from it. We need to learn. Hopefully people will be learning now. Learn. Something doesn't happen too much. I want to just cover this very briefly. This is an important thing that we're, next subject is a data collection that we're still doing from the June election. It is important to do this sort of data collection after the election. It takes a while to even get to the documents because they're using the documents in their practice of doing the election, and so they won't let you even look at them. But now you can. So I've done this before. I did it in 2008. I got a 5% sample of the sign-in rosters, and they're very, very interesting. We're doing that now here in San Diego. I think we're doing a little bit better job than I did in 2008 in terms of collecting the data, because we're collecting a little bit more in terms of the NPP voters and whether they got a crossover ballot and the number of provisionals and the like and so forth. So we're doing a little bit better job of data collection, but it's still time consuming. To do a 5% sample means you're going through 77 packets, and each one is, you know, maybe a half an inch to an inch thick of paper. We don't take it all, but we do look at a portion of it, maybe a quarter of that in detail, and we scan other parts of it. I did make a tutorial video. We have improved this somewhat from what we did in the video because we're entering the data directly into a spreadsheet now instead of using a paper data collection methodology. So that has improved, and I think it'll help us downstream, because as you're collecting it, if you're just entering it at that time, then there isn't that other step of having to enter it again. Excuse me. The reason it's taking a while is that the San Diego Registrar of Voters limits the number of people. They don't want too many people involved. And in fact, they have an overabundance of people watching us. You know, we have 3 people in there, and they have 3 people watching us. Of course, they're just over at the side giggling and telling jokes because there isn't really much to see. But we find that 3 is a pretty good number because one person can scan documents when they don't have signatures, and maybe some that can be redacted, we still scan those. And then a team of 2 collects data from the actual signature rosters, the white pages in San Diego. Now, it's probably different in other areas, but I don't know. Maybe it is very similar in the different counties. And these 2, we have one that counts the signatures and kind of maintains their place on the page, and then the other person enters it as they go. It's too hard to do one. You can do it, but it's kind of hard to maintain your place and be entering all at the same time. It's much easier if you have 2 people. Now, what do we get from this? I'm just going to give you a couple of examples. First of all, we want to know if X voters sign in and vote, how many ballots are scanned. So let's say, 100 people, there was one where 94 people signed to register the rosters that they voted, but only 90 instead of 94 were scanned. So, you should find that exactly X are scanned. That would be everything made it from the precinct into the facility that's scanning and into the computer. You should see that same number. Not what they voted on, but just that the ballots were processed. And then is there some loss? Are we losing N ballots for some reason? In this case, in this specific case that we looked at as an example in the video, the precinct lost 4 ballots out of 94. It's about a 4% loss. That could be a pretty significant change in the election if we just lose 4 of the ballots. Were they picked out to be lost? Why were they lost? And is that a valid thing for them to just disappear? What if you got more than X? You got more ballots, then that's some big problem. You're not supposed to get more ballots than you had voters. And this happened in some places where the election, the computer system got more votes than people that were registered or that ever voted there. That's indication of hacking. Another thing that we noted, and this isn't shown here on this agenda, but we noted that very few of these precincts actually could add up the number of blank ballots, the number voted, the number that were spoiled, and the number that were left. So they got a certain number of ballots up front. Some of them were voted, you subtract that. Some of them were spoiled, you subtract that. And some of them were left over, and that should all, when you subtract all that, you should end up with 0. And in very few cases does it add up to 0. A lot of them just give up. They couldn't do it. This is one reason that I'm not too confident that having people in precincts actually count the votes is a really good solution, because the precincts can't even add up the number of ballots correctly and get it to balance. In the 2008 sample, only 15% of the precincts that were sampled added up. The rest didn't add up. There was a missing, or they just gave up. We can't do it. Some of the time there's a thing called a ballot statement where they put these numbers down. How many ballots did you have? It's supposed to all add up. And some of them don't even try. It's just they put blanks and then sign it as if it's not a big deal. Well, it's an important thing for us because and I think the audit should go all the way back into how many, not just at the start of scanning, how many ballots you had when you fed them in the scanner. It should go all the way back to how many people signed in. That should be part of their audit. They don't do that. So we have to do it. This is the process of actually auditing the chain of custody from the precinct into the scanner and what happened in between there. The other thing that we're getting here is how many nonpartisan to Dem crossover voters there are. They're not supposed to be treated as provisionals per se, that is the extra scrutiny that provisionals would get, such as matching the signature. These people are already valid voters. The signatures have already been matched. They sign in and so forth, and they don't have to match signatures in the polling place. They sign in, they're the right person, and so you say go ahead and vote. Oh, I need a crossover ballot. Oh, well, I'm going to put it in this provisional envelope, and then it goes through, and you have to sign it. Oh, they're going to check your signature again, perhaps. Are they going to check your address? Maybe they are. And if they do all that, then that's not really valid. That's additional screening that should not occur. And so we don't know if they're doing it or not, but we're going to be asking some of those people. We have been gathering information about how many and the names. We have another list with the names and phone numbers, and we can have people call them and find out what happened with these nonpartisan voters. How were they processed? Were they given a provisional ballot? Were they forced to sign it? And then we can also see if the number adds up. The thing is that somehow San Diego Registrar Voter claims provisionals were no more numerous than in other elections, about 10%. How could this be when we also hear that there's this unbelievable number of provisionals going on where everybody's getting a provisional? I think it's because they handle it in two batches. Pure provisionals that need extra scrutiny and the nonpartisan votes that were still put in a provisional envelope, but we're not supposed to be given extra scrutiny, and unfortunately are not given the benefit of additional tracking, which normal provisionals do get. So usually if you do get in that provisional envelope, you're supposed to be able to check on the website, did my ballot get counted? And in the case of NPPs going for a crossover ballot, you don't get that tracking. So we've heard that some officials were having a really hard time. Election officials that are hardcore, like the guy in Alameda. I'm sorry. Is it Alameda? Yeah, I believe that's the county. It's Oakland County, Alameda. So what we've heard is that he's been extremely restrictive for letting people watch the election processes occur, and he's not, you're not able to take notes. Okay, I get the note here. Tim Dupuy from Alameda County. That's what I'm talking about, right, Jen? So he is not able. You can't take notes. You can't talk. You can't video record. Nothing. So I think that this process here, where we're asking for documents that they have to give us, not out of the main track of the election, and then having people go in and look at those, would be a good way to exercise a potential lawsuit for getting those documents. So if we're not in the middle of an election, they have no way they can say, oh, well, we're too busy, we can't deal with all this oversight. And so that would then soften them up, get them used to the cameras coming in and people being there and looking at documents. It's some work. If you look at this video that I mentioned up here, the roster review procedure tutorial, you can kind of see we go over the amount of work that it is, and it looks like it's going to be about 4 weeks of volunteers going in. At this point, we're about, well, as of tomorrow, we should be, I think we'll be about half done, and I think we're about two weeks into it. It's a bit tricky to get this to happen. You have to have computers, a scanner. You have to have people that are somewhat computer literate. You just can't be, well, I just want to look at stuff. You have to actually be carefully looking, counting, entering, and kind of knowing what you're doing. Now, at least we've done it. I've done it 2 times now, and we have a track record for how to do this. So I think that it's something that we can replicate in other areas. And, you know, it is going to take someone that's a leader in that area with some computer savviness and to be able to do it. Let me move on now. I'm not going to cover a lot of new stuff here. I've already talked about the November plan. In essence, we want to have teams established by mid-October. We want to try to get everybody to, if we can, in 175 districts. I know that's a big, you know, it's a big mountain to climb. We're actually looking at expanding from San Diego, not just into California's top dozen or 2 dozen, but also going on to another, you know, approximately 150 other districts across the nation. Let's face it, we're not going to do a very good job of covering these at this coming election, even though I would love to do it. Possibly, it would be possible if we could somehow get some attention from people like Our Revolution to attend to what's going on in the election integrity area versus just basically a fundraising entity that's going to be looking for supposedly sponsoring candidates. I think it's mostly just fundraising so those people can continue to earn a living. We need to find somebody, by the way, from Wisconsin. They have 3,500 districts, and we've got to figure out how to group those together and understand the significance of different areas in Wisconsin, because I think that it's set up there so it's virtually impossible to really understand. And maybe that's why Wisconsin is so troubled at the leadership that comes out of there. I covered this before. I'm just going to mention it again, that there's 2 aspects, which is the boots on the ground oversight, and that's fairly easy to do. You don't have to be, you know, techie or anything like that to do it. Basically, you're not necessarily going to see anything, but just being there changes the whole atmosphere. Having people there watching changes the atmosphere. The snapshot protocol oversight does require a more careful interaction, because you have to do it up front, you have to get it arranged, you have to get the data file at the right time, but it's not that much. If you do the right thing, it's actually a minimal amount of work to have a very large effect. And you can do it, one person or one small group of people can deal with a state. You don't have to have, you know, people going into the district. You can have a few people, let's say Michigan, let's say you had half a dozen people that want to implement this. You could cover all the important counties in Michigan. You could do it in Florida, cover all the counties in Florida. By the way, we have this election coming up in Florida. I'm not sure the exact date, but I know it's pretty soon. This is a Debbie Wasserman Schultz re-election, and I understand we have a progressive candidate opposing her. I can't think of his name right now. Somebody can probably tweet it into me here in the message box. But that is happening, coming up. Oh, Tim Canova, thank you, JT, for that information. Tim Canova. So here we have an election coming up before November that we need to, if possible, do some additional oversight. The problem is Florida has a really crappy auditing laws. They don't do all the races. They do only random races, but I understand this is somewhat of a special election. There aren't going to be a lot of races, and so as a result, it may still be an important thing to carefully watch the audit. And maybe we can get I know we have a number of people, and I think there's an organization in Florida, a number of organizations that are election integrity. Unfortunately, I don't think they understand the audit, and they haven't been watching the audit, and they haven't been watching how they work around it. So if we can get them to understand from our lawsuit how they're avoiding the audit such that it can be rigged, we need to get them to understand how to provide oversight so they can't do that rigging. So that is The snapshot is basically getting the snapshot file again, where it's in unofficial results before they do the random selection, so they can't go back and change things. We talked about last time, and I'm going to try to wrap this up. We have district targeting. We already have a procedure for doing that. And so we don't want to look at all the districts because many of them are not that significant. So you want to focus in on the important ones. Usually the top 20% of the districts is 80% of the votes. It isn't quite like that in these. It's more like the top 20 is about 50%, maybe 75%. That's the way it is in California. The top the top 40% in California are 92% of the votes. So it's incredible. You know, you leave out 34 districts, but why should you do those other 34? You're only getting 8% out of it, and it's a lot of work. So you want to focus in so that with the small teams that we have here, we can make the best impact. We're not quite to this, but we're going to try to get the groups together in each state. Fortunately, some of the volunteers that were going to be taking that on went on a vacation, and so we're coming to get them back on board to do that. And we're going to be doing the notification letter very, very soon in California, and we can promulgate that to everyone else and see if you can do the same thing. And I guess that's about it. So let's see if we can take, I did have one other thing I wanted to show you. This was this is the flow chart that I used in my presentation on the audits, and basically to describe the significance of the audit process that you see here, and the fact that even if you have a voter verified paper audit trail where the voter looks at a ballot or some sort of a paper evidence of what he did and what the machine is reading, you still, and then you get the race results, is this top flow up here. No matter what, you need to have an audit process that checks this. I don't care what you put in here, even if you put people in here. I got to, so we want to get, I wanted to point out here, and I want to encourage you to watch that other video. The audit process is so significant to checking, and if we do this, we get a good audit process, we're not going to really care what's up here because this is going to check it. The problem is up front, you have all the rigging up front with who gets to vote. Are you registered? Are you getting the right ballot? Are you in the right polling place? Is there a line? Not enough voting machines, blah, blah, blah. All this stuff. This is a rigging up front. All the jockeying for position by the parties trying to, jockey here. And then there's some at the end of trying to exclude some ballots that got through, but we're going to take them out. Yeah, those all exist. We got to get this right though first. We got to get this audit process going. Now I see we're about 45 minutes into the call. I think let's see if I can see the chat box here and maybe pull up some people that want to talk. Yeah. So do you, I see there's people confirming what I said. Linda Carpenter, let's see if you had a comment there. Let's see if I can unmute your phone since your name is shown. Oh, there you are. Okay, I'm going to unmute you. You had some comments. Can you unmute your side and see if I can hear you? Linda Carpenter. Okay, I'm not hearing her. I'm going to continue to listen. I'll tell you what. Oh, there. Linda, are you talking?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Okay, yeah. Good. Hi, Ray. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, hi. Thank you. Where are you?
Well, I'm up in Petaluma in Sonoma County,
Okay, nice.
and we have we have a pretty good system up here. It isn't perfect, but we don't have the kind of antagonism that I think happens in some of the other counties. So I'm hoping to turn our county, to approach our ROV from a standpoint of inviting them to be kind of a good example to the rest of the state. So I think that's how I'll be approaching them.
That usually does work good. Honey works better than what is the saying? Anyway, it's honey is good. Establishing a relationship, if you can, a working relationship. We've just, unfortunately in San Diego, we have no chance of that because this guy Michael Vu is so far off track. We tried to work with him, and sometimes he's cooperative. I mean, in some ways he's very cooperative, but in other ways you can't get anything from him. If you get it, and some of these, I think some of the registrars of voters and the people in charge of the elections honestly trying to do the best job they can. They want to do a good job. And they just may not understand this whole process either. They think, oh, I'm following it, I'm doing an audit, but like in Fresno, if they choose the precincts 2 months in advance and publish it on their website, it's all just a joke. It looks like they're tallying stuff, but you could easily manipulate the election at the same time. So yeah, so you're saying, yeah, you decided to go to court. Michael, you're talking about Michael Vu in your message here. We asked Michael to follow the law, do what, take more include all the ballots in the 1% manual tally, and he wouldn't do it. And so now he wants to go to court. He won't take our settlement. We did ask him to settle, and the settlement would be saying, look, we're wrong, we're not going to do it again, and then go back and redo that 1% manual tally that is questionable. That's what I would hope that they would do. But no, they want to go to court, and as far as I'm concerned, it's fine. The more they fight us, from my point of view, the better. I get more promotion out of it. We get more people interested. It gets in the news. It's fantastic to have a little battle, where they're being idiots, because we're going to win this. I know there's no way that they can say that it's okay to exclude 40% of the ballots. Just no way.
I have one other comment, Ray,
yeah.
And that is that I was a poll worker in Sonoma County for about 5 years, and so I do understand how complicated it is and how really difficult it is during the training for poll workers who only work one election to really understand what's going on. So with my understanding of how complicated these elections can be, the more information that you can give us out here so that we can go over it and over it and over it in our minds and think about how that's going to apply to the election itself, that would really help me.
Okay, so one thing I can say here is that this review that we're doing now of the precinct information is really enlightening. I mean, I do think that, I'm not trying to badmouth the precinct workers or poll workers, because they're trying to do a good job with poor training, first time, as you say, and I don't think they're trying to rig it or anything like that. It's just a very hard thing that they're doing. It's hard. Human beings have a really hard time counting up. You count a whole bunch of ballots, you see which one's there, you've got hustle and bustle inside the polls, people going this way and that, the public's not always cooperative, and so you end up with a little bit of an error. That's fine, but we need to have it tracked better than they're doing, not so much of the poll workers' standpoint, but the rest of it. Now, I want to find out from you, what kind of information are you thinking of that will be the most, like when we're getting information to you, what are you thinking of there?
Well, I'm thinking about right here about your snapshot process, just really understanding it with the flow charts and the information that you had up there on your agenda so that I can go over it in my mind multiple times and apply it to the election itself, because it is complicated. I know that it is. I can tell by looking at it that looking at this information one time and hearing somebody say it one time is really not going to do it, I'll tell you that.
I realize that, and trust me, it took me a number of years now to even get to the point where I can understand it myself. And I actually find it fairly difficult to explain it so that people will, so that it's simple, because it isn't that simple. It actually is the auditing process itself has to be done a certain way, or it's just not, it's just going to be fraudulent. It's going to be a sham if you don't do the audit process right. And most of them aren't. The people that are the election officials, they don't really understand what they're doing, I don't think, enough to be able to say, oh, well, the law says random selection. That doesn't just mean throwing the dice and choosing it 2 months ahead of time. It means also it has to be a surprise to them. And they have their own a group that tries to work things also so that they can be cheaper for them. I mean, that's a valid thing to try to make elections processing is less expensive to process. So yeah, I am going to try to put this out. I know Sonoma, I can't recall offhand. I'm going to make up the list of the counties that are responding to our request. So we put out, Sonoma is in the top 24, okay, that we're looking at. They're toward the bottom of the list, but they're up there. And we did ask them, are you going to do all the ballots, including all of the provisional, validated provisionals, and all of the vote by mail ballots in the, I believe they said yes. I believe they said.
They actually replied that they are going to do that, because I don't think they did that for the primary.
I don't think they did. In fact, they were one of the counties that provided a declaration in our lawsuit stating that they don't do it. And I know that they are, because I know that I remember that name. So they are a county that provided a declaration saying that they don't do it either. They're just with Michael Vu on this. We see them saying, I believe, and I could get this mixed up because my mind is not as quick as it used to be on remembering everything. But essentially, we're going to be making the list of who said what, and if they don't say they're going to do it, then we're going to file a case, and that's going to make it clear that if they don't do it according to the law, that we're going to take them to court. And sometimes this is the only thing that they listen to. We've already asked them to comply. We've sent a letter to everybody and says, we want you to comply with this. We said the ruling down here has already happened. The judge says will probably prevail, so now you know. And so we're saying, if you don't do it, you're going to be knowingly violating the law. They don't want to knowingly violate the law. If they like to be able to say, I violated the law, but I didn't know it, and therefore I'm okay. But if they know that it's against the law, then they can't do it. So this is why we want to make sure that they understand it too. And it may be the case that we need to educate these election officials too. They may think, hey, it's okay to do the random selection 2 months in advance. What's wrong with that? They just don't understand it. Okay, so thank you very much for your comments. Is there anything more that you'd like to say while you're on opened up, Linda?
No, I'll go ahead and unmute and let somebody else have a chance.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's see if anyone else is messaging me that they want me to open up their channel. I'm getting down to the end here. Beatrice from Arizona. Okay, let's see if I know there's a lot happening in Arizona. I'm Beatrice. Can you hear me? Can you unmute your side so you can? Okay, I see Bonnie, by the way, wants you to contact her, Linda. Yeah, okay, so I guess, Beatrice, there are a couple of lawsuits going on in Arizona. Douglas Ricketson is asking the question about if there are lawsuits going on. Indeed, there are. Here's what I understand. In Arizona, Pima County, what they do is they do a pretty good thing. They actually take a picture, create an image for every single ballot, and they store that on, say, a big hard drive. and then they have software that goes in and reads the marking off of those images. It's a really good system for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's a good system because, number one, you can't really change a ballot once it's been put into an image, so there's none of this whiting out and marking. And by the way, while whiting out came into my mind, this is going to be one of the things that we investigate in our discovery process in San Diego, because we did find evidence, such as seeing them do it and them admitting that they do whiting out of ballots and modification of ballots, which is supposed to be completely, it's actually a crime to do so. So in Pima County, which is the area of Tucson, they image all the ballots. They have software that looks at the images, decides where the marking is, and adds it up. At this time, the group Audit AZ, which is and it's an acronym that is an election integrity group, and it's led by John Robert Brakney. His group is suing to get those images preserved instead of being destroyed. It's nice that they have the images. Another thing that it does is allows you to do a nice, easy, and cheap recount. You can't do a recount very easily. It's not cheap. You got to go in there and look at individual ballots and see what they say, maybe run it through your own scanner. It's a lot of work. Well, if the ballots are already imaged, then you just get a few CDs or probably Blu-ray discs. They have enough capacity to have all those ballot images on them, and then run it across another piece of software and count up the marking. So doing a recount, even 100%, is really not that difficult. Best practices example, no, Pima County unfortunately is not a best practices example. They are, even though I will say a few things about them. They have a election integrity commission that meets and talks about and has public comment about what they do with their elections. This is a great thing. We don't have anything like that in San Diego. It's just this one unelected, appointed guy who came directly from Cuyahoga County, Ohio, directly after he apparently fixed the election in 2004, rewarded for his work here in San Diego with a bigger job. With no input, you can't even get information from the guy. So in that respect, Pima County is really doing a good thing by having that. Now, something here that I guess J.T. Watson is giving us the lawsuit here. Yeah, okay, so this is the lawsuit from that's in process. Thank you, J.T., you've been helpful. So we get everybody to see this lawsuit. Request for a temporary restraining order to stop them from destroying those ballots. A ridiculous thing to do. You know, you're supposed to preserve the ballots for 22 months by law. At least that's the California law. I don't know if it's a national law or not, but it should be. And they're destroying the already scanned data. It's nonsense. Oh, we don't have a big enough computer. Are you kidding me? You know, you get unlimited space almost for nothing these days. I'll go out and buy a disk drive that has, terabytes, 16 terabytes, way more than enough to store all that stuff. So all that is basically horse crap. They're saying that they don't have enough space. They do this all the time. Oh, it's too expensive. We can't store it. We can't find a big enough disk. It's just so ridiculous. So this is a really good lawsuit. Very important that we get these ballots preserved. And this is a bit of a thing that I've been promoting for a long time, which is what I was calling open canvas, which is a method of basically opening up the election. It's a proposal I made a while back. Let me let me get this in print version so we don't have that sidebar. And essentially, the open canvas method, see there's a picture here. Let's see, here's on one slide. Essentially what you're doing is this proposal is to scan all of the ballots and distribute them to different parties. I think there's a down here, okay. Basically you have a stack of DVDs, you distribute the images to all the parties, and then they come back and recognize the vote with a ballot number, and then each one of the votes, you know, for every single ballot has all of its, so you basically each of the parties can determine what is on those ballots, and then they compare them. And I did have a picture on this, but I don't see it now. I wasn't expecting to do this. So let's see. Oh, Janet Lancaster, thank you for coming on board. So we're getting to the end here of what I wanted to do. It's a little bit past 7, and I want to try to complete this. But let me just finish the open canvas really quickly since I started talking about it. There's a picture here that hopefully, no, I don't see it. This is all on the, why is the slide not there? I'll have to look into that later. So essentially open canvas, you do what they do in Pima County, you image all of the ballots. But then, instead of keeping them for yourself, you put them on DVDs or Blu-ray discs and you distribute them to anybody that wants them. Democrats, Republicans, Libertarians, everybody, Citizens Oversight, Audit AZ, everybody can get all of the ballots imaged. Why not? Then each one of those groups runs it across their own software, counts up all the ballots, then produces that table that I showed you, and then you compare them. And any ballots that don't compare, then you take a look at them. And you put them up on a Google website somewhere, have Google sponsor it, and everybody looks at every ballot until you figure it out. So it's open. It's an open canvas instead of being closed. What they have now is a closed canvas. Everything is done back in the building, and then the best thing we have is an audit. This is completely open where everybody sees all of the ballots. You don't know whose ballot they are. There's no identification of whose ballot it is. But by having a table like I'm showing here, of course it'd be many more columns. Every single race is a separate column, and then there's a separate line for every single ballot that's there. So it'd be like 1.5 million lines in a big election in San Diego, and then you'd have maybe a few hundred columns. But that's what computers are good for. They're good at adding, comparing a list of things that has already been recognized. And anything that isn't recognized, where there's a difference between what the Democrats say, and most of them are going to compare right. They're easily, but the ones that aren't, you take a look at them, and everybody agree on it, put it on a website, and have a big conversation. Let's see here. I thank you, JT. You're a great help to get that. We have Sandra Lewis says, how would it be to have volunteers from outlier counties to come into important counties and provide support and relief? Absolutely can do that. For example, in California, we have San Diego, Orange County, and LA. 50% of the voters in just those 3 counties. We got to make sure those counties are dealt with. LA is a really important county. But look, if you're in a county, you can do oversight. I don't care how small it is. Go ahead and provide oversight in your county. Talk to the officials, see what's going on, go in. You can be like, I'm not trying to devalue being a poll worker. I think it's a great thing to do. But with the same amount of time, you're not getting paid for it. You go with that same amount of time and you go into them and watch them process it. I think your time is very well spent, very well spent. But again, they're not going to pay you to provide oversight of you watching them. Last thing they want is somebody watching them as you're doing it, as they're counting the votes. Let's see here. Let me see if I have. So Sandra, basically, let me see if I'm not sure if you have. I'm unmuted you if your microphone is working.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi.
Oh, okay. Hi. That was one of my questions, and the other is I've been thinking that maybe if we contacted like service organizations, I'm not a social person. I've always been away from politics, but it seems like I don't know, Shriners, Moose, Elks, whatever, colleges, civics classes might be good sources of volunteers.
Well, no, I think a lot of those organizations are just social clubs like the Elks. They're not going to want to go in and look at the polling place. They're just a drinking club. A lot of them, to go in there and drink and I'm sure there's a few, but you have to look at places like League of Women Voters. I think would be a great asset. Common Cause, the groups that are actually have people that are interested in elections and politics. Some people they're not interested at all in elections and politics. They don't care about it. They don't care if the election system works or not. I think it's very important. I think the election system is very important, but a lot of people don't care. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just thinking about reaching out to less conventional, because like Our Revolution and people that they're so excited about working for a candidate and phone banking and that kind of stuff, they seem to think that they'll accomplish something without dealing with the elections.
True, and you have to wonder, why is it that we're so happy to let people work on elections when we know they're probably not going to be able to get anywhere, because we already know that the system, the process in the elections is highly rigged. So what they're doing is just saying, okay, well, the media loves it. Let's have these little battles. We'll make money on it. We don't care. And so they never look into this.
Oh, yeah.
This is a taboo topic. Media doesn't want anybody to be questioning the underlying notion that the elections may be rigged. And then you have to say, well, what about what do we do with people who want to work on elections? Well, let's have them work on some. I think that it takes a special breed of person to want to do oversight of the counting of the votes. It's somebody who usually is going to be more than just someone who wants to raise a sign up and rah at a convention. There are people that love conventions. I don't like them because I don't think that they do anything. But I am looking for something that with a small amount of time available, that I can be the most productive, the most effective. I don't want to be going to a convention and feeling good, but then realizing, gee, what the hell did I do? Nothing. I spent a lot of time. I spent a year or whatever doing this, and I didn't get anywhere. Whereas I'm spending time now, as you see, we got a lawsuit in process in California that's going to affect all the counties. So it's very productive, probably more productive than anything that I've done so far, even though some of the things have been very productive. Pretty much all of these things of providing oversight through citizens' oversight from the beginning has been extremely productive in terms of actually getting results and making me feel like I'm spending my time wisely versus wasting my time.
Yeah,
I ran for office.
Very excited.
Go on. Very excited.
To connect with some training, because I volunteered to observe the count here in Butte County, and it was like I had no clue what was going on. We weren't allowed in the room. We were kept out in a hallway and watched through windows. Mm-hmm. And it seemed pretty good. Didn't seem to be times, when people were alone with ballots. I got the impression that our county did very well. as
Well,
far as things
yeah,
went,
well,
but they didn't want us there.
true, but,
But having some training is fantastic.
yeah, that's our intention, and we're actually not really, we haven't really completed nearly as much as we want to get done. What I want to point out is that much of the type of oversight that we want to teach you to provide is not about going into there and watching what they're doing, because you actually get very little information from that. Instead, it's by getting
Yeah.
certain computer files from them that you can then take a look at. Because these days, it's not the counting, it's not the people that are doing the counting. It actually goes into the computer, and the computer is counting it. So we have to be very sophisticated and say, okay, I need a computer report at a certain time so that I can then check what you're doing. And if you don't know when to get that computer report and how to check it, then going in there and watching it's important, because there's certain phases where having someone there is essential. But it's, I think, not as important as doing this sort of snapshot protocol, which is just asking for one computer file at a specific time and trying to get it. And if they give it to us,
Yeah.
then they're actually saying, oh, well, somebody may be watching us, and so we better not do our hacking. If you don't have that, if no one is watching what they're doing, then all bets are off. They can just hack to the wildest extent. And a lot of these counties are set up so that the hacking can be done. Is it intentional? I don't know. I think that maybe it is intentional just to kind of look the other way and let the hacking go on. Because I can't believe they don't know what they're doing. I can't believe they don't know that a random selection doesn't mean that it has to be a surprise, but maybe they're just don't know. Okay, well, thank you very much, Sandra. Butte County, go on. Okay.
So, it's just so tempting when you're in that position of power to make things go the way you want them to go. But has Butte County responded?
Butte County is, I'd have to look back at my records because I don't remember. They're a small county. They're not super small, but they are,
yeah, we're small and up north.
Yeah, you're small and up north. In fact, some of my family members lives up there, so I know it pretty well. But they, it's not a heavily populated area, and so it doesn't rise up to the extent that others do. However, Butte County does include, Chico and some big towns, and so it's going to be not totally insignificant. There's other ones that have only one precinct. I think it's Alpine County. There's a whole set of counties that are in a group that are cooperating together, and I think they should probably be just all lumped together, because even the top 30, the lowest 34 counties in terms of population is only 8% of the vote. So why have so many counties doing separate processes for counting the vote when it's so few ballots are involved? It's just a waste of money. But hey, you employ people. I guess it's a good thing. So thank you very much, Sandra. I think that your question, though, is it worthwhile to go to Butte? Of course. I wouldn't discount Butte as not being important. It's just that and by the way, the analyses that were done, they took a look at the smallest counties, and the smallest counties, until you get to 1 million voters, or no, it wasn't that many. It was a number. I can't drop it right now, but the smaller counties all went for Bernie Sanders on the Democratic side, and the larger counties went the other way. And so it makes you wonder, well, were those larger counties hacked more? So that's another reason why looking at the smaller counties is maybe not as important, because it doesn't look like the hackers are really going there. Like, let's say you're a hacker. What are you going to do? Work on 34 counties to get 8%? No, you're not even going to waste your time. So in essence, that's why we saw Bernie Sanders winning in those counties. They weren't hacked. The other counties were flipped the other way. Suddenly, you say, where are the hackers going to spend their time? Where are the political parties and all the people working on races? They're going to spend their time on the most important counties.
That's why bank robbers rob banks.
Okay.
That's why bank robbers rob banks. That's where the money is.
That's right. You don't rob poor. unless you're, unless you're the government. Okay, so anyway, thank you very much, Sandra. Let's see, is there anyone else who would like this? We're kind of past when I wanted to, but we have a good conversation going, if you don't mind. Okay, I see Dorothy Dillon thought it was started at 7. Sound went out? No, it seems like the sound is good for other people. Okay, I wonder why that is. Here's one that maybe we can activate. Lynn Delaney, let me see here. If you're on and you can unmute your microphone.
Okay, I just wrote a question. What happened when you actually saw them whiting out votes? Did they stop then? What happened? Did you get someone arrested?
No, actually they admitted to doing it and said it was all just fine. And so they claim that it's okay to white out ballots to enhance the ballot so that it will run through the scanner properly. The problem that we had was when we saw Bernie Sanders white it out. Now I understand the whiting out. Here's a scenario where whiting out might be valid. Let's say that you are a non-party, nonpartisan voter, no preference, MPP they call it, and let's say you wanted to vote in the Democratic primary. You want to vote for Bernie Sanders, let's say. And you go in there and you say, I want that crossover ballot so I can vote for Bernie Sanders. And they said, no, we don't have enough crossover ballots. All we have left are regular Democratic ballots. You're going to have to vote on that. And you do. And you accidentally also vote on the Democratic Central Committee race, putting in your marks there. Because that's provided on the, that's provided in the Democratic ballot, but it's not provided on that crossover ballot. So then when they get your ballot and they find NPP and they find those Central Committee race marked in there, then they can white those out and still run it through, and it won't register any votes for the Central Committee race. So, okay, maybe that's a valid reason to do it. I can't think of any reason why you're whiting out Bernie Sanders. I don't know why that is. Now, if they can explain it, I'd love to hear it, what their explanation is, and we're going to be asking them that in our discovery process. We're going to be asking them for their policy, and I know that they just white these things out without any really review. There's not two people sitting there as they're whiting out. So even if you have a policy that says, here's when we white out, and you have one person doing it with no one watching, they can do whatever the hell they want. They can white out. They can maybe taking money under the table, whiting it out, making some extra money. You know, so that's where we are now. Our lawsuit is still in process. We're going to be doing discovery on this whiting out issue. It isn't specifically part of our lawsuit as it stands. However, we're going to, if we find information about it that we can go after, then we will. We'll either expand our lawsuit or we'll file new ones. And then it is a crime to change a ballot with the intent to change the vote. So that's a pretty big deal, and that's why the FBI did contact me about this and try to get some information in their investigation. And so maybe their investigation will go somewhere as well. Okay, well, we're way past time when I wanted to try to wrap this up. So thank you very much, Lynn, for your question. Let me just see if there's any final thing here. I see Dorothy. I don't know, Dorothy, if you have figured out your microphone. Let me unmute you and see if you can say something. Dorothy, come on. Dorothy's
Hear me?
Yes, hi.
Oh, yes. Okay. Sorry, I was late. I should have my glasses on when I read your email. I just saw 7 o'clock. But I just wanted to say that for the Sandra, I think, from Butte County, you can see what we got from Butte County as far as their audit report on their 1% audit, and you're probably going to be a little disappointed. Like many counties, it's really not much information. And anyway, I've got all the documents when we requested that they send their tally, audit tally reports, and we've got them all loaded up now for everything from let's see, right now I'm working on Orange County, so everything up until Orange County plus San Diego is available on our database, and by the end of the week they'll all be up there, so people can go out and look at their county in California.
Yeah, so let me, it is something that I did leave off of the agenda, and let me just mention this again. What we did was we requested all of the audits from the counties in California, the top 24, and for the last number of elections, because they stopped publishing those on the Secretary of State's website. Anything after 2010 was not published, so they missed 2 elections in 2012, 2 elections in 2014, and they don't publish it on their website, and for 2016 either. So we said, well, gee, we better start archiving this and saving these while we still can still get them. And so I went out and asked them for them. A lot of them did come in. Dorothy Dillon here, thank you very much, has been helping to upload those onto the website. As soon as we get those on into our sort of audit database that we've been constructing, then we will do a big splash press release about our audit database in California, and I think we can get maybe some traction to illustrate how this can be extended to other areas by doing that. So, but also we just wanted the information there. So that is an important thing to add, and we all want to sort of clap. You know, I guess you can clap. It doesn't come through because your microphones are turned off. But let's assume everybody is clapping right now for you, Dorothy. Thank you.
Can I just say one thing after having loaded on pretty much
Sure.
half of these up there? My impression is
Yes.
just about maybe Humboldt County, but none of these people are following the law. And from what I also am getting these documents that were sent to the Secretary of State for the certification of the election. They have to have these audit documents.
Right.
I don't think anybody's looking at this. And I just had
No,
one
they're not.
thought. I had one thought when while doing this, is that not right now, but maybe after the November election or at some point, we may want to set up some sort of criteria where we can rate counties
Right.
and publish the ratings.
Yeah, because that's the
I
way
think
we
that
can embarrass them
and it
into.
might have an influence to
Yeah,
get a good rating from us.
Yeah, that's an excellent idea, and it's one that I had as well, because that's a way to put public pressure on these organizations to try to get it, because they do. They want to get a good score, you know, because what else do they have to live for? You're a public servant. You can't, you know, you make an okay salary, but you can't make a, you know, bazillion dollars. So there's no profit incentive really to that. But you do want to do a good job. Most people, let's face it, want to do the right thing and want to do a good job. The problem is I don't think they know what they're doing. I don't think they know that they're not doing a good job. That's why we're here, and I think the fact that they're not doing a good job is the reason our elections are in jeopardy and have been hacked and are being hacked every single time. And because they're just looking the other way, they're leaving so much out of the audit, or the audit reports are so pathetic. San Diego has like a 5-page report. At least LA County has a decent report. They had like 1,300 pages in their report, very, very detailed. It's a big county. But 5 pages for number 2 county, I don't think that measures up. Now, some of these reports, like the one you showed me there, Dorothy, from San Mateo, we've been trying to process that, and it's kind of interesting, and we might want to, in a subsequent call, try to go over some of these audit reports and try to make sense of them in the call so that you can see what the reports look like, look at the numbers, and see where they're not measuring up. Now in this report from San Mateo, it looks very nice. They have some pictures and stuff in there, and it's very glamorous. It takes a lot of space because they have so many color pictures. But what they have missing, and they never mention, is the fact that they didn't sample all of the ballots in the race. They're missing the later vote by mails and the validated provisionals. Well, I think we've got to close this off. It's been half an hour longer than I wanted to go. I really like doing the conversation. Was there anything else, Dorothy, while I had your line opened up that you wanted to say?
No, that's it.
Okay, no worries. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone. We'll bring this call to a close. Again, this is Ray Lutz with Citizens Oversight. I encourage you to go to our website if you haven't signed up and go to citizensoversight.org/sign-up. And if you'd like to donate, we appreciate that. We are going to be having some lawsuit costs that we need to cover. Please go to citizensoversight.org/donate. And we will be sending this recording around and so that you can watch it later or share it with your friends. Thank you very much. Bye now.